Hi there, welcome to this video. This video will be providing you with a comprehensive guide to self-maintaining your locks, especially micro locks. As you can see, I have micro locks in this video. If you have regular or traditional locks and maintain with the interlocking method, this video would be useful for you too if you want to self-retire them. Now, a few things to note before we get on with the video. I would urge you to watch this video in progression so you do not miss out on things, as I may have explained my rationale behind what I'm doing in an earlier portion of the video. And if you do not watch it in progression, you may have missed out and have questions. So that you wouldn't have questions that have already been answered, I would advise or urge you to watch the video in progression. Some of the things we'll be discussing in this video is what to do when you have hair growing outside of its lock. When you're about to do your retire, what do you do to it? How to manage frizzy or loose hair on the body of your locks. Tips on maintaining the integrity of your lock, especially when you are way past your retire date and you have an overdue undergrowth. That happens when you have not retired your hair in a while, your locks in a while, and they have started locking or thickening up all on their own. You get tips on how to avoid forming a knot on your lock or avoid passing one lock into another one beside it. And even if you happen to form a knot on your lock, what to do to reverse the issue. I almost did form a knot on one lock in this video and I had to undo it. Yeah, another thing is prepping multiple locks for a retire, multiples like 3, 4, 5 locks at once, especially when you're getting tired, so that the process is a little faster. Okay, let's get into it. The next couple of clips will be showing you the tools that I use. These are double prong clips or hair clips. These ones are a longer version of the ones I showed earlier on. They can hold more hair and I generally use them to hold the weight of the hair at the bottom. Okay. The next one are also hair clips, but this one, in fact, I use these ones more. I had about 6 of them at the beginning of my journey, like 5 years ago, and they have spoiled and they have just these 2 left. I use these ones a lot because they can hold a lot of locks together. Now, these are hair packers. They can, you would see them, you put your hair in sections with them, or you put hair out of the way with them. You just use them to portion of hair that you need to get out of the way or put into sections. That's just basically what they are here for. And now the next is my interlocking tool. These 2 are interlocking tools. One is metal and one is plastic. I in fact use the metal one all the time. The plastic one also came in this set. They are called, you can look it up, they're called crochet needles. Yeah, I use this one all the time. They are called crochet needles. They do not come bent, they come straight. So I had to use a plier to bend it into this curve and widen the eye of the needle. So you can search up crochet needle or interlocking tool and you should be able to find one online, or visit a loctician around you and ask if they sell one of these. Okay, now this is a bottle for spraying, hairspray bottle. Spray bottle. Yeah. Oh my god, this is a spray bottle and I'm just pouring some water into it. I use only water, and if you have been following along my journey on Instagram majorly, I just opened a TikTok account. It's at Witia Bell, the same name of this account. You would know that I just use water and olive oil after every wash day. So yeah, that's a spray bottle. And now the tool that helps me the most, well, not the most, I mean, the interlocking tool is very important, but this tool has helped me successfully retire my locks, I this is called a three-way mirror, and I'll be showing you this mirror properly as we go on. Yeah, this is it. I had to do a DIY. I had to make this mirror myself. I went to the market, the local market, and I got out I bought the mirrors, and I went to get cartons, and I went to get a tape, sellotape. And from the beginning, it was the first day I had not even used it at all when this point cracked, and I had to tape it up because it was a little distracting when I tried to use it otherwise. So yeah, the reason I had to do this myself was because the options I saw online were a lot smaller, and it seemed like I was going to have to hang them, and I was not interested in standing all through my retire session, because a typical retire session takes me about 14 hours. So if I'm going to do this for 14 hours, I do not think I want to stand. I usually just place it on a table and have it this way exactly. You would see it as we progress in the video, but you can do this yourself actually. Yeah. So let's get into it. The first thing I do is wash my hair. You need to wash your hair. It is very important to wash your hair, and it is highly encouraged that you retire your locks on damp slash wet hair. I personally love wet hair. I wet my hair on every line that I portion out, as you would see in the video. And now you'd also see that my grids are non-existent at this point. It's not really a problem for me because I mean my locks are due for a retire, and that's all right. I'm also going to be showing you how much growth I've had since my last retire by sticking my fingers into the lock to show how many fingers can go into them at the point of this retire session. I think this is also a good time to mention that these are Microlocs, just in case, just in case there are people who do not know the names. I know that they seem very similar to sister locks. They look very similar, especially when now when they are mature, and when the grids are not intact and packed to show that these are sister locks. The reason why I say that my locks are to show that these are micro locks. The reason why I say that my locks are micro locks and they are not sister locks is because they were not installed by a sister locks consultant. That is the major difference between them, between micro locks and sister locks. For you to say you have sister locks, you have to have visited the sister locks consultant, and I do think they have a grid pattern and some things that they have to do, but on all, the maintenance method is still the interlocking method. So I do think that this video is going to be helpful for you if you have sister locks, as I mean they are also micro locks. The standard time period between retires is 6 to 8 weeks. To be very honest, I hardly ever do my retire at 8 weeks. I generally do it way more than 8 weeks. And as you can see, it has not affected my locks in any way. I mean, you'd get to really look into my locks as we progress, but I do not advise you to do that. But I'm just telling you, if you have gone past your retired date, it's not something that you cannot work with. Okay, yeah. Let's move on to the business of the day. I am sectioning my locks. I generally do 4-5 sections. If I do 4 sections, I'll most likely still just move it to 5, which you will see at the back. I do not really bother with how detailed or neat the parts are at this point, because I just need to get them out of the way and have a some visual coordination on how I'm progressing on what I'm supposed to go to next, or what portions I have put them into, yeah, I hope you get what I'm trying to say. But this is what I mean by, even if I put my hair in 4 sections, I always eventually put them into 5. As you can see, I like to do this. I like to separate that bottom part out from the other parts of the hair. So that's what I mean by, even if I do 4, I end up doing 5. So now I'm going to tuck the other part of it into the, you would see what I mean shortly. So you get 5 sections on the hair. This is generally what I do. I have moved from doing, I used to do 8, I think, when my locks were shorter. I think I have a video on, like, a really early video. But yeah, this is what it looks like by the time I've sectioned them off into different parts. Now I'm setting up my is it stand? I'm setting up the table for the retire process to start. I usually put this table, that's a bedside bed. It's not a bedside, it's a bed table. Oh, what's the name? But it's a table for the bed where it folds. It's a foldable table that you can use, like if you want to work on your bed, and especially with your laptop when you want to write. So I usually just put that to prop up the mirror so that it's the angle is better, or it's higher for me. Now that my locks are getting longer, I'm beginning to think that, especially after this session, I'm thinking that I'm going to find something to elevate this mirror more in the next one. Okay, so now I'm putting all my tools in front of me as I within arm's reach. Those are my hair pins, the double prong clips. You do not need to have all of them out at once, because the pack I got was like 80 for these small ones, and I have only been using this 6 since the beginning. Of course, there'll be some wear and tear to them, but they still work really well, and whenever they are out and done, I would let them go. Then the other longer ones were just 6 in a pack. Yeah, so this is what it looks like. Yeah, I always watch or listen to something while I'm doing my retie. Here is what my ebook looks like. Just a few pages of what it looks like. Oh, who is this? Who is that? Do you recognize who that is? But yeah, these are just a few pages of what the ebook looks like. If you would like to get the ebook, link is in my bio here on IG. And now I finally get into business. I have positioned the camera properly. I think I've chosen to watch Wednesday, to watch the newest episodes of Wednesday in this retire. And I thoroughly enjoyed that movie. I usually get bored of series. I generally rather just watch lots of short films, and I'll get tired of all the short films and I start listening to something on YouTube, and that's how my retire process usually goes. But yeah, let's get into the interlocking methods, the standard interlocking methods. There's a 2-point rotation, there's a 3-point rotation, and there's a 4-point rotation. I use the 4-point rotation. It is the most secure one. It's especially more secure than the 2-point rotation, especially if your locks are prone to loosening. But I do understand why people may want to use a 2-point rotation, but I would show you what the 4-point rotation is like. Now look at it. Standard, it is 12, 3, 6, 8, just like the face of a clock. And you can either go clockwise or anti-clockwise. What I'll tell you is that once you start going a particular way, just stick to it. When I started my journey, it was more popular to do the anti-clockwise rotation, but I found that it was easier for me. After multiple research, I found that there wasn't really any reason why people were going anti-clockwise. So I just chose to do clockwise because it was easier for me to do that. And I also have another alternative to this 12, 3, 6, 9 that I actually always use. I hardly ever tell myself 12, 3, 6, 9, and I would show that to you in a bit. The 12369 is just for you to understand the positioning on the clock, or some people say north, you know, south, east, west, and whatnot. But I'll show you in a bit what I usually use. And yeah, I'm done with one. It is very important for you to make sure your locks are damp or wet when you're interlocking them. So yeah, I think, yeah, you should wrap loose hair round your lock while, just before you interlock the lock, so that it can secure your loose hair, and you have a neater lock, and your grid would also look neater. Okay, now for the method that I actually always use is very simple. I use 1, 2, 3, 4. I think you should say it now. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. This way, I can go on and count 1 to 10, 1 to 20 subconsciously, especially when I'm watching a movie. I'm not doing that now because I am trying to pay attention to this video that I was trying to create. But yeah, I can just keep doing 1, 2, 3, 4 subconsciously. As children, we learned 1 to 10, 1 to whatever. So if at some point I had forgotten, and my hair comes out of the needle, or what, for whatever reason, I just remember that I can do, you see, yeah, that's what I mean, 5, 6, 7, 8. I just remember the number that I'm on, and if I were on an 8, I know where it was supposed to be, just because 1, 2, 3, 4, the four corners. I do think that this has really worked well for me, because I'll just be doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in my head till I hit maybe like a 12 or whatever. Yeah, I do think that that's one of the best things that I have done for myself. That way I do not have to watch the mirror or be so stressed about it. I have gone to I'm done with the fifth section at the bottom of my head. I like to work from the back to the front, so that the more tired and more fatigued I am, the easier it becomes for me, because I do find it easier to interlock or retie my locks at the front. So now let me show you how to retighten your locks when you have had a lot of time and your lock has started locking up. So you see that point I was pointing at? If you go back a few seconds and watch the video, let me replay it. That's the point right there. The point where it seems like that was the last point the needle went through in the last retie. In your last retie weeks or months ago. Normally you would want to cross it and not go through that exact point, so that you do not have a hole. But because my locks are already thickening up, that is the exact point that I want my needle to go through, so that it doesn't bulge. And you will see me checking the lock to see if there's any bulge, and this has worked for me because there are no bumps on my locks. Now I'll be showing you what I generally do when I have a few instances of hair that has grown outside my locks. I do not wrap them too tightly around the lock, especially when you can see that they are short and not, it's not like it pulled out of the lock. It's not like it's a slippage. You understand? I just lightly wrap them so that they're not too tightly drawn, because I have 4C hair and it can stretch, and then the part I just do now would be thinner. I just lightly wrap them and I retighten them, in place, like holding them in place. Trust me, they will stay. They will stay in place. Especially if you have 4C hair like me, they'll stay. So yeah, I'm done with this section, and I'm just showing you the results of my efforts. And now I'm going to put them into a twist. I find that at this exact stage I prefer putting them into twists, because they do not particularly hold well in a packer, and I don't like to put unnecessary tension where I have to make the packer too tight or whatever. It's easier to just also add new retires that have been done into the existing twists at whatever size that they are on. Okay, now to the next section. Making progress. Good Lord. I posted a video on Instagram when I was in this section, and I was like 54th lockdown, 366-ish more locks to go. Okay, so at this point, I am going to start doing more lines. Yeah, that was already done. I have done like a triangle, like a left angle triangle towards the left, vertically on my locks. Now I'm doing horizontal lines, as you can see it. That's why the lines are not getting to the end of this section. Now this is the point where I'm very bothered about my lines, because I'm trying to ensure that I'm working with the existing grid and maintaining it as much as I can. It is very important to portion off hair, even the ones that have been done, so that they don't get in the way. No matter how many years you've been doing your self-retire, it is still very important to section things off. Now look at what I was saying with sticking it to the very base of the hair, and not the roots of your hair, the base of where the existing lock has ended. Yeah, and I go downwards, so I do not go from the roots of my scalp towards the lock. I go from the lock the base of the lock to the root of my scalp, especially when I have an overgrowth like this. It helps avoid bumps, because I found out that if I go from the root, the normal way where you go from the root and drag it up, it's like I'm dragging up and I'm making the thickness, like I'm sectioning off the thickness that has formed, and I'm not, it's just leave like a bump, and I had to start fixing the bumps. So this is what I've come to realize works for me. Now we're at the end of this line, and another thing you would notice is that I do not always start from maybe the number 12 or the north, or whatever you think of it as, or number 1, like I have earlier said. Like I think I started at number 3 now, but it really doesn't matter, because wherever I start from is wherever is the number I start from. So if I started from a number 3 from what I use, then I just continue 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If I started from number 2, just because that was the best place for me to start from, because of how my locks are, then I just continue. So if it's 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I don't start counting 1, where if the point of starting is a 4 or a 5, I do not, well, not a 5, but if it's a 3 or a 4 or a 2, I don't start counting 1. I just start counting the respective numbers that are attached to that side of the hair. I hope you understand me. Oh yes, so now I'm going to show you what to do if you are dealing with frizzy hair, or hair just pulling out of the lock unnecessarily. I do not have this issue. I generally did not have the issue, but I had a few locks that had excessive hair on the body, and I only needed to fix it once. If I did it again the next time, it was the ones I missed. So the thing is to wrap the loose hair maybe 3-4 times round the lock. I zoomed in so that you can get a better view of this. And you need a one prong crochet pin, because you have Microlocs. So you wrap your hair round the loose hair round the lock, then you take the needle, the pin rather, and stick it into your lock. Then you proceed to wrap that same hair that you were holding with one finger round that pin and drag it out. When you drag it out, then you pull out that excess hair fully, then wrap it again round the lock, then repeat the same thing. Stick the pin into the lock, drag the hair out, wrap it again. This way it provides more friction and more resistance. I think that's a better word. So when the hair wants to act up and loosen, it's not as easy. And I do think that when you try this out, you will not be dealing with as much issues, or and you do not need to cut your frizz or trim your frizz. I do not support that in any way. Although I also understand that not all frizz is long enough for this. If you are at a younger stage in your lock, where you have baby locks, teenage locks, please leave the frizz alone. It's supposed to be like that. I know what I'm saying, because my locks were not like this when they were teenagers. They looked very frizzy. I do not have. I'm not going to show this video here of what they looked like when they were teenage locks or baby locks, but I have videos of that on my Instagram account, and from time to time I do show them when I do a new post showing what my locks used to be like. But the freeze is normal, so please do not villainize freeze. And that method is for when sometimes you just have those really long loose hair strands along the body of your lock, and that's what you do to fix it. Okay, moving on. I think I have finished. Yeah, I'm done with that section now, and I'm taking out the pins, and I'm just going to show you what the section looks like. You can see the stark difference between the parts that are done and the parts that are not done. Nothing beats a fresh retire, I tell you. Nothing beats a fresh retire. Ooh, look at my grade at 5 years, 5.5 years. So that's like 5 years, 6 months now. And if I am able to do this and maintain a neat grade, you can also do it. You just need to practice. This thing is a matter of practice, and when you start, is your day one. Like, no one is going to take that from you. The next time you do it, it's not going to be your day one, and you just keep getting better at it. You will find it easier to do. You will find tricks and things that work well for you. As this video is just going to be telling you principles that you can extrapolate, or just modify into your own routine. As you can see, I use the mirror quite often, like not even quite often. For every single lock that I do, I look into the mirror. The only thing is just that I would say that I do not have to look at the mirror to lock the hair, and I think that's where some people may find it daunting, or some people may imagine or assume that they need to do that. You just need to feel it, and that way you would even know. After some point, you will know the angle your hand is facing and know what point you went in through. It becomes muscle memory, yeah, at some point. It's not totally muscle memory, but you do it to the point where you get to understand where you most likely stopped, even if you have forgotten. You do not need to stick your neck beside the mirror from beginning to the end to do your retire. Yeah. So now I'm done with this line by line. We're getting it done. Always section off the hair, the interlocked hair, away, because they can still cause an issue with the remaining locks that you have, because if you just leave them hanging, or you just moving up and down, you can mistakenly drag the lock into the loose one that you are doing. I know it may seem impossible, but trust me always putting lock away has come from experience. I mean, they will tell you to do that, but I have also had my experience with that. Okay, so now we're in the front. Good Lord. At this point, I was already getting tired, but I mean, I was almost done. This is my halfway. So when I'm done with the three at the back, I just, it's like a cheat code for myself. I tell myself the back is half, even if, as you can see, it's not possible, but it just makes it easier for me. You see me wrapping my hair loosely around the lock and going to the exact base of where the lock ended, and not my roots. Then I walk from the base of where my lock ended down to my roots, and I'll just keep adding. So now I would show you how I prep multiple locks at once, as you can see. I just keep I just ensure that the parts are neat and I pin them, but I don't do too much because it can be stressful, too much tension on the hair. But yeah, just pin them down, and that way I do not need to go back to look into the mirror to do the next one. I just feel around it and take up the next one and interlock, take up the next one and interlock. Yeah. So that's the process. At this point, I do not think I need to do a slow version of me interlocking the locks. I think you already get the gist of it, but it's the same thing. And to be honest, at some point you zone out. And this is why it's the 1 2 3 4 is easier for me to do, because that way I don't have to it has been ingrained into us. I think where I'm from, the ones, the numbers and all of that. So that way I'm just counting, and what was my last number? I remember, then I know where I was, even if I have forgotten. Then the placement of how my hands have come out of the lock also shows me where exactly I am. Okay, so now let's talk about my edges. I have said it numerous number of times on my Instagram and lately TikTok, because I just opened a TikTok account, that I retighten my edges every 3 to 4 weeks. And I have a lot of well, not a lot, but I've had some naysayers tell me, oh, you shouldn't do that, it is going to make your locks thin out and yada yada yada. But I mean, you can look at the lock. Feel free to make your decisions yourself, but look at the lock and tell me if you notice any thinning. The locks at the front, especially on my edges, are a lot thinner than the locks at the other parts of my hair, but I have not had any issues with them since starting. What made me start retightening my edges every 3 to 4 weeks? What made me start was because I realized that my edges were thinning when at the point of a retire. Let's say I wait for 8 weeks, I would notice that, because of course when you retighten your lock, the new part that was just retightened can never be as thick as the old lock. So yeah, they are thinner, but this, when your locks are thinning out, it's more obvious. Another way to know is, by the time you're doing the next retire and it's still way thinner, and the few strands of locks that were affected at that point is still thinner than now, where I have been interlocking or maintaining my edges every 3 4 weeks. This is what has worked for me, and it's okay if it doesn't work for everyone, and that is why I say that it's not it's, you take the principles you learn and adapt it to your own peculiar case. If your locks if your locks do not like it, then fine. But this has worked for my own locks, and if you look at my edges, you would see that it actually works for me. So that's why my edges they don't have as much undergrowth as the other parts of my hair. And in fact, I have added, I think two new locks to my edges over the past 5 years now. You will see it. You will see one lock that seems like it's jumping. It's because it's new hair. So if I'm not supposed to do that, if I'm doing something wrong, I do not think that the hair would grow. But anyway, moving on. I'm done with this section now, and yeah, I'm glad about it. I'm finally at the last section of hair to be done. And I do think that I rather enjoy doing my hair. I understand that it may seem daunting to a lot of people, and sometimes I may be sluggish and I may not want to do it, but in the process, it's me time. I have to make time for me. I spend time with me, and I do rather enjoy my company. And if you also struggle with mindfulness, doing your own retie forces you to be with yourself. At some point, you would run out of movies to watch, or I do run out of movies to watch because I do not enjoy all movies. So on Netflix, the sort of movies I enjoy watching, perhaps finished watching them, because I usually watch movies when I have to do my retire. Then you watch a lot, and I'm also not a fan of series. So like by the time I'm done watching some movies or listening to some maybe podcasts on YouTube or watching whatever on YouTube, at some point I have to spend time with myself. And I enjoy that process. So I do think that it's a good mindfulness practice. But I know that some people are like, hell no, I'm not doing that. And that's okay. But yeah, wrapping it up. And I'm at the last lock. Yeah, that's the one. That one is for my edge. The underline. Look at that. I'm showing you the grid. Yeah. Looks good. Finally, I'm on the last line, and this was where it was on this line that the knot I almost gave myself a knot. At this point, I have retired my locks since the first retire. You would think that I'm not going to go through some of these issues anymore, but there's no perfection. It's normal. That's why you have to have things that you do or you put in place. And I do think that I'll do a quick summary of them at the end of this video, just to remind you of what it should be. But yeah, this I think is the next one. This is the last line. At this point I was just waiting to be done. It was good while it lasted, but I was tired, I was hungry, I needed to sleep and all of that. And then I came to this second to the last one, and boom, that's where the blunder wanted to happen. Just look at it, just take a look here, and that's it. Again, that is it. Watch the knot happen in real time. The amount of time it took me to fix this thing. Look at the knot. I'm just so glad I didn't force it like, oh, it's good. That's why you need to feel your hair and not particularly only watch it. And this too will come from practice. Don't be scared to start. But I eventually fixed it. How did I fix it? Just imagine that you tied a nylon bag or a plastic bag. Imagine tying it tight. And if you've never done it before, please go practice it before you untie your knot. Tie it tightly, then try to undo it without tearing the bag. Once you're able, or tie a rope, a twine tightly and try to undo it. And you can just look at the mirror and watch what you're doing and try to retrace your steps. But that is it actually. If you have passed your lock into another one, so you have to try and retrace your steps as early as possible. But sometimes it's not something that you can retrace, and that's okay too. But that is also why you have to section and clip down your hair at every point. Don't be too lazy about that. That saves you a lot of stress. And be very mindful and feel your hair. I do think that feeling the hair is the trick. Anyway, I'm done now. Let me give you a summary of what you need to do. Generally, you need to have your tools that I have shown in the beginning of this video. You do need to section your hair into smaller sizes and work with the sections that you have portioned rather, and you work line by line and section of points that you are not going to be working with, so that you do not get confused with where the lock is supposed to go and you don't mistakenly pass your needle through another lock. What else? I think that's it. Wet your hair. You need to wet your hair. You need to also practice not totally relying on the mirror and feeling your lock, so you know where the four corners of the lock that you're working with is. That way you do not have to be hunched over or looking at the mirror at all points and not enjoying the process of caring for yourself. It's a very good thing to be able to do your hair yourself. You do not have to rely on anybody. Even if you have a loctician, what if the loctician is busy or cancels? What if you move to another place and you haven't found a loctician? You should be able to do your hair and not be at the mercy of someone else. Yeah, it's a good skill to have. But I do understand why some people may be like, no, I'm not interested, and that's okay too. But anyway, we've come to the end of this video. Thanks for sticking around. Bye and have a beautiful locks journey.